Right, that's 1 o'clock there. Will we get kicked off, David, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Give it a go.
Give it a go, yeah. We've got a driver on the slides today, Kier. Can we get started on the slides? Thank you. So a really brief introduction from myself then. So I'm Sean Smith, work at AutoEntry. I'm an accountant by trade, years and years ago, and I've kind of worked for different software companies over the years as a digital transformation consultant. Is probably the best way to describe it. So I used to travel around the country, visiting lots of different firms and helping them to optimize or change the systems that they were using and kind of like guide them through that process. So I've worked for companies like Free Agent, Xero, Clarity, and I'm now here at AutoEntry. David, do you want to do a little intro to yourself as well?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm David. I'm from XU Magazine. We cover content on the accounting platforms and all of the apps and add-ons that sort of link into those as well. So as we know, there's more than ever of those. So it's a bit of a minefield in terms of working out who does what and how well do they do it. As well as that, I've got an accountancy practice that I run as well. So that's what I was doing originally, and then sort of XU came after. So the accountancy practice is going for about 15 years now, and we've got around about 25 staff, just to give you an idea of sizes we're talking about. So that's me.
Nice, awesome. How do you find balancing those two roles, David?
So I don't find it too bad. If you ask my wife, probably not so good. So it varies. Everything has its peaks and troughs, right? And I find that it's just down to time management. So and prioritizing one over the other. So yeah, it's not perfect, but it does work. So
we can maybe delve into that a little bit as we go through the content here, how you use different apps or different processes to kind of help you with that time management and saving time and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, without some of the automation and things that we're going to be touching on today, it'd be impossible, really. So for me.
Brilliant. If we move on to the next slide then, so kind of introducing the subject matter, I suppose. We're going to be talking about sort of accounting automation. We're going to rattle through a good six points and then some bonus points at the end as well. But I guess it's just like introducing sort of like the gift of automation, right? So like why is it so important? So we're saying here, you know, it can completely like change the activities that you kind of do. It can really reduce like manual processing, and of course the sort of the other side of that, I guess, is obviously more valuable or interesting work from like the accountant's point of view, but then more sort of timely and accurate kind of services that you're able to deliver to your clients, right? So that's an introduction to the subject matter. By way of an agenda, so on the next slide, we're kind of looking at, this is my attempt at an agenda. So we're looking at kind of 6 different points. If we move on the slides. So these are kind of just like 5-6 sort of key touch points, I suppose, that we've pulled out. So we're looking at sort of marketing, sort of gaining new clients or retaining existing clients. And it's all places that we think that automation can kind of touch. So the next one's sort of like onboarding those clients, so getting the proposals, engagement letters, all the anti-money laundering checks, etc., that you kind of need to get clients onboarded. Just flowing into like, I guess, sort of like the jobs to be done when you're sort of looking after your clients. So like the age-old battle of trying to get information out of them in a timely fashion, then looking at just kind of managing your resource, I suppose. So that's the client servicing piece. You know, and what jobs are in, what resource you've got in the business, how do you, you know, allocate that and keep track of the jobs so nothing's kind of fallen by the wayside. And then finally, kind of looking at like the outputs, I suppose, of these automation tools. So what sort of reports can you get out? What sort of information can you glean from these systems to improve your clients' experience, or give them more information, or better advice, or more advice, or whatever it is really. And I guess last but not least is getting paid. I think that's important for all of us, customers and accountants alike. And so looking at the sort of offerings that are out there to kind of automate or improve that kind of chasing of payments, or even just like the way that you receive them, is the last point we'll cover. Is there anything you'd maybe add there, David, or do you think that's probably a good covering?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good covering. I think it's an interesting one though, because I was talking to somebody about this the other day around the automation piece, and it seems, I'd probably say for most of the points, there's a lot of good solutions out there now, and there's lots of really good advancements and ways of doing things. But I'd probably say point 4 massively, and this sort of stretches a bit into point 3, is they're still completely wide open. Because if you look at the other bits in terms of the 1, 2, 5, and 6, a lot of those are sort of static point to points, in terms of like, it's a case of you're moving data, you're potentially moving in sort of information from one place to another, you're categorizing it, you're doing something with it. Whereas if you look at point 3 and 4, a lot of that involves people, a lot more in terms of questions, queries, chasing for information, that kind of thing. And there's parts of that you can automate, but some of that is really, really difficult, especially when it comes down to those queries and the ongoing servicing. And for me, that's a really interesting space at the moment, because there's automation that you can do within it, but it's the biggest one that I see keep people coming back with, that they're struggling with. Whereas the other points, there are lots of really good solutions out there now to help people cover most of those off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Yeah. Right, let's kick in. So we're starting off with point number 1. So marketing and sort of acquiring new clients. So I guess there's not necessarily an app for this, or like a particular solution, right? This is more of a sort of behavioral approach, or a strategy as a business, right? So it's encouraging clients to come to you, encouraging clients to stay with you. And how do you kind of do that? So of course you've got the sort of typical methods of like your website. I think even now, still the biggest form of getting client work is word of mouth referrals. I don't know if you'd agree or challenge that, David.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that one. Yeah. From my experience anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's quite universal, but it doesn't mean that you're not getting information through your website, or in fact, when someone does refer, let's take you as an example, David. Say one of your clients refers you to a new potential client. There's a very good chance they're going to look you up, right? They're going to go onto your website, see what you're about, maybe try and click on your name, look at your profile or something like that, and kind of get like a feel for you as a person and the business and the services you offer before they kind of reach out to you. So I still think it's really important to kind of look after that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And I think from my experience as well in there, I think it's a case of you can do a lot of that quite automated. It's a case of once you've got your foot in the door, that's when you potentially have to sort of get the human back involved, because that's where people buy from people, don't they? Yes. That's what we find anyway. But before that, before having that warm lead conversation, just trying to sort of make it as systemized as possible.
Yeah. It's putting up your shop window, isn't it? And there's that, I think I agree with you there, there's that initial investment. So if we take the social media example that we have on the screen here, so there are apps out there that can help with social media, because of course the algorithms sort of are set up to make you, or want you to post like daily, to kind of keep yourself relevant and appear at the top of all the kind of like scrolling feeds. And of course that can be a big sort of input from an individual to be there every day. So there's these apps like Hootsuite and Socialbee. I've used Hootsuite before. So it allows you to kind of like organize your social posting for the week or longer. And you're able to sort of dedicate maybe, I don't know, couple hours at the start of your week to kind of organize them all, put them in order, and kind of like time them so that they go out each afternoon or each morning or something like that. And similar with the website example, initially setting up the website might take a bit of time, but then the maintenance of it's quite easy after that. Is there anything that you particularly use, David, for like the marketing or acquisition kind of angle that you would call out?
No, I mean, it sounds silly, but one of the things that we brought in probably 2 or 3 years ago, which saves us one of the biggest amounts of time, part of this process is, so we've got lots of tools that we use in terms of like MailChimp, we use like social media platforms to scheduling tools and things like that. Because the way that I look at it is like, if you look at High Street, for example, and basically you go and walk up and down a high street and you have to knock on all the doors, and then basically you're saying, can I have a meeting to see if you want to take on our services? For me, it's like, what tools can we use to automate that knocking on the door? And it's like, are you potentially interested? Because I only really want to get involved, or a human wants to get involved once somebody's said, oh, actually, yeah, go on then, I'll have a chat. Because up to that point, there's quite a lot of dead time. But what we found as one of the big things is getting Calendly looped in, so that we can then get people to book in meetings where we've got space and it just links in with our diary. Because we actually were looking at the amount of time you spend on going back and forth of saying, are you free on this date? Are you free on that date? Oh, can I book on a call in for this and that and the other? And for some reason, we'd done absolutely everything else, and it was really good and moving really well. But when it came to that bit, it was still, oh yeah, let me have a look at my diary, you look at yours. And it took up so much time, and I dread to think how many leads that we lost. So for us, that was a big thing we've implemented in the last couple of years on the back of everything else. And it felt like the sort of final piece of the puzzle for us. And it's silly because lots of people do that first, but for some reason we left it last.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I used Calendly in my last job, and once I implemented it, and my clients were able to just literally click a link and then pick a slot in my diary. Just the number of emails I was sending probably dropped by about 50%, I think, once you implemented that.
Yeah, so phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the reason that probably came last, and I'm totally guessing here, is maybe that you kind of think that that's kind of removing the human part, isn't it? That sort of back and forth conversation, but actually that conversation is not a valuable one. So it's probably one worth automating. Whereas the conversation after or during that meeting is the valuable one that you want to keep.
Yeah, I think so. I think some of it was people are also, we found, very protective of their diaries, and they're like, I don't want anybody putting anything in the diary except for me. But once people understood, and like, you can block out the times of when people can book you in. It's not like they can just block it in whenever they want, and obviously if you've got something else, it takes it out. So I think a lot of it for us was people getting their head around that, of like, no, actually you've still got the control over it, and people can't just sort of book in as and when they want, and it's going to screw up your day. You can make that, you can put the slots in, and I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers for us. Once we got past that, it was okay.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Right, if we move on to point 2, we're talking about, I guess, like the next step, right? So once you've had that conversation, once you've had that piece, it's about the client sort of saying, yeah, I do want your services. How can I get onboarded? So on the slide here, we're calling out, Go Proposal and Oversuite can massively help with this. But of course, there's other players in the market, right? You've got Ignition, First AML. I think you also get like AML checks with your governing body as well, don't you? So we were with IAB and we got AML complete. So there's lots of different tools in this space, and they can all also have a really good purpose, I believe. But in terms of yourself, David, are you using any kind of tools in this space, and has automation helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use different tools throughout the whole of this. So we actually, oddly enough, we use a mixture of both Go Proposal and Ignition, just because we've got some legacy clients on one of them, and we've been slowly sort of migrating those. But we use that. We then also use, and the name always goes out of my head, and I can't remember it for the life of me, but we use a tool basically for the AML checks and the ID checks and things like that. So
Yeah.
new clients, all they have to do is on their phone, just take a photo of their ID. They do like, it's a bit like the banks do if you've ever signed up to Monzo or
Is it
Starling or
cardful?
something recently. No, I can't remember the name of it now. And then you do
It's
like a little
on-
short video of yourself, just saying, "Hi,
Yeah.
my name's David. I'm a real person."
Oh,
type thing.
yeah. I bank with
And that works.
I had to do a similar thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, and it's really similar. So that whole process now, I think there's so many different tools to be able to do that really, really well and to automate it really well. The main thing that we found was then mapping that across, and this isn't just an engagement, this is all areas, but then mapping that across into our sort of central source of truth in terms of the information that we're sort of pulling through during that know your client and the sort of engagement process, how that then pulls through in terms of the practice management software, where all the information sits and everything like that. That was the main sort of challenge for us to do that really well. And we used a lot of different tools like Zapier and things like that to sort of bridge those gaps where there wasn't any direct link.
Yeah. No, that's a really key point. I think that sort of single source of data, that single source of truth is massively important for firms.
Yeah. 100%.
Right, if we briskly move on, because we're running out of time already. It seems like we've hardly even delved into this. So I mean, the age-old battle of getting documents from clients, right? So this is like a bit of a home game for us, obviously at AutoEntry. This is our wheelhouse. So AutoEntry, hopefully, as you kind of know, is a data capture tool, and it allows you to capture all the information you'd need from a client, right? So receipts, invoices, bank statements, you name it. And of course, it integrates with all the major kind of bookkeeping products. Certainly from my experience and my point of view, I've had, lots of firms will move to like a cloud bookkeeping solution over the years. So whether that's your Sage or your Xero or your QuickBooks, whatever it is, but they weren't using like a data capture tool, and so they did this big move from desktop or spreadsheet, whatever it was, to cloud, and then weren't seeing any improvements, and were like, complaining back to me like, we're not seeing any improvements here, Sean. And I questioned that. I was like, so how are you, show me how you're using it? And then, so they were still clicking create invoice, typing it in, and like manually adding bank transactions. And so I had to sort of explain. I was like, well, you're working in exactly the same way, just on a different system. So of course you're not seeing any improvements. And actually these cloud products, bookkeeping products, I think come into their own when you couple them with a data capture tool like an AutoEntry or Dext, for example. Do you have any kind of thoughts on this space?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that. I mean, we use data capturing tools as well, and I think it just makes life 100% easier for us internally, processing stuff, setting rules and things. A lot of the platforms have these built in, but they're not the best. We found, so getting a standalone one really does the job. But I think the key is teaching the client that they need to input the data, because like with any automation, it always has to have a start trigger point. And with this, it's the client taking a photo in the app and uploading it, or forward an email through, for example, which then filters into it. That's the bit that you have to put the time into, really. The rest of it can work really, really well and seamlessly if you train the client what to do.
Yeah, and that's a really great point. When I used to help firms sort of roll these out, my approach was always those clients that drop off the kind of bag of receipts, use your data capture tool to process that internally, get comfortable with it, kind of learn and make your mistakes and get really good with the system. And then it's the education piece of actually, instead of you doing that data capture, you can sort of say to the client, look, you can download this app. So instead of giving me that box of receipts and having to keep it all year, you can be snapping these things as you go. And that was like the second stage of the implementation, was that education piece, which is what you've called out there. If we move on to the next slide here, so there's I wanted to call out here, I suppose, the idea that it's kind of like an app for everything, right? And I wanted to call it sort of mileage as an example, just because there's an app here that I use Mile IQ for my mileage. And I guess that this is a space that works for all clients, so you could use it for yourself as well as your clients. And it's just the idea that you know, if you're out on the road, you can get your mileage captured, and a lot of these things will then plug into your bookkeeping solution or your data capture solution, and just tie it all together. That was kind of like the main point I wanted to get across, was just not specifically the mileage example so much as if you're doing something in your business, there's probably some kind of like app out there that'll help you kind of digitize or streamline it. I don't know if you have any examples of any others, David, or do you use or recommend like mileage apps or anything like that for your clients?
Yeah, I mean, there's a million and one different ones, to be honest. I mean, there's a good one called Driver's Note, which we see a lot of people use, just because it's you can use most of it for free, and it sort of picks up as soon as you get in the car and things like that. But yeah, so that's probably one of the most popular ones that we're seeing coming through at the moment. But yeah, there's hundreds of them out there, really.
Absolutely, yeah. And from like my point of view, it changed my process from, you know, typing it into Google Maps, taking a screenshot of the map, and then writing out the reason for the journey and where I was going and all that kind of stuff. I literally just type in postcode of my house, postcode of where I'm going, and the rest is done. It even applies like the mileage rate, the approved mileage rate from HMRC and everything. So it's just super simple. Right, if we keep going on, so we've got, well, this ties into your point about practice management, David. You were mentioning there about getting that onboarding piece to flow through into here. So from a sort of practice management point of view, I mean, I know a lot of firms that were using Excel for this piece, and there were some really weird and wonderful solutions that they had that were really quite efficient in the grand scheme of things. But of course, there's software solutions kind of stepping up to the front now in this space. Whether it's you use your sort of there'll be like native solutions. There usually are native solutions. So if you're using Sage for accountants, if you're using Xero, it's Xero HQ. I don't know what the QuickBooks one's called, but it's the same idea. Or if you're not wanting to log into like 3 different instances, you could have a sort of dedicated practice management system as well. And of course, I think these are really useful. It helps aids with that client relationship, I think, in terms of tracking the tasks, making sure things aren't dropped. And from a CRM point of view, we use a CRM internally, Salesforce, and it's so invaluable to me. I'm having so many conversations with so many different clients, and it just tracks everything for me. So I'm able to see like a brief history of their emails or the last notes that I took, and it just means that when I'm picking up the conversation, we're starting exactly where we left off, kind of thing, and it's a much smoother client experience, certainly, and from my side of things anyway. Just firing over to you, Dave. Do you use a dedicated practice management system? What have you kind of got in this space?
Yeah, so we use Carbon for this, Carbon with a K, if anybody's looking at it. And we found it to be really good. I mean, we the main thing for us is automation around recurring tasks, whether that's annual accounts each year, VAT returns, whatever it may be. It's having those recurring tasks always popping up, complete visibility of that. But then the automation around that as well. So we set up lots of things. So when it's somebody's annual tax return, for example, it will send them a little list of things to make sure that they've not forgot. So, oh, you had any of this year? Have you had any of this? Have you had any of the other? So a little checklist that they can work through and then respond on, and it updates to say, oh, your client's responded. And then it's a case of we're doing a lot of that data gathering work and just processing some of the job without actually having to touch it. And that for us is probably been a 5-year sort of build up to that. But you always have these ideas of, oh, let's do this, let's do that, and it just takes time and tweaking. But we feel like we're in quite a good place. There's a million and one other things we want to do with it, but for us, it's all about building on that, and we always just go back to the job and look at it and say, right, where are we spending the time? How can we automate that? And that's how we do it. So
yeah, just sort of iterating and improving as you go, right?
yeah, exactly. That's it. Every year, just going back and looking at it and seeing, actually, have we improved, or do we need to look at it a bit more?
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. So if we move on to sort of like, I guess, the output side of things now, so we're looking at sort of like reporting that you can get out of these systems, or forecasting if you're using like additional apps. So of course there's Futurely, which does your sort of real-time forecasting, but there's a lot of players in this space. You've got your Fathoms, your Floats, there's Sift as well. There's probably more that I've not named. And this is a really interesting space, because I think a lot of these bookkeeping solutions, they have native reporting, right? So you're able to do reporting from the system natively. And I think that's probably a good place to start, but it's when you're wanting that automation piece, I think, and you're wanting to be able to do it at scale, or make it look different and more customizable. You know, when you're wanting more kind of advanced features, that's probably when you're going to start looking at a separate app or a standalone app to kind of help you with your reporting and forecasting. And of course, all the apps that I've mentioned there, they integrate with all the major bookkeeping solutions that are available to you. David, my question to you on this one is, do you find that this directly helps you improve the services that you offer to your clients?
Yeah, I think so. So we use Futurely, and we have done for quite a few years. And it started out because we were just presenting information. So we do a lot with sort of boards in terms of we sometimes sit on as finance director ourselves or work with finance directors. And it came out originally wanting to produce reporting for board meetings and things like that. And have like some quite bespoke information in there, but also present it in a couple of different ways, because some people like to look at figures, some people like to look at graphs and colors. And for us, that's what the main sort of impact was originally, having that sort of versatility within there to do that. I mean, over time that's evolved more, and we're doing a lot more with it now in terms of the sort of forecasting and modeling piece as well, because we historically did all of that on Excel. And we've been sort of moving that as well, because it just makes the continual reporting a lot easier in terms of actuals versus budgets and stuff. So it's had quite a big impact for us, I think, and the perception from the client has been really good as well. But that's what our lead-in was, because we had a very specific reason in terms of we had lots of clients we were producing big board packs for, and this just made life 10 times easier.
There you go. But it sounds like a win-win, right? So if you're 10 times easier for you and the clients are really happy with the experience, then it sounds like it's worked brilliantly.
Yeah. I mean, and it saves us loads of time. Like we were looking a while back in terms of the amount of profit we make on those jobs now is probably 5 or 6 times what it used to be before we implemented anything, just because we can speed up the process so much more.
Well, there you go. If that's not an advert for it, I don't know what is.
Yeah, you can give me 20 quid later.
Yeah. Right, so moving on, we've got the last of the 6 that we called out from the agenda, so sort of receiving client payments. So I guess you've got kind of 2 components to this. It's making it simpler for clients to pay you, and then there's which can hopefully remove the need for chasing. But then, of course, if you still need to chase, there's apps out there that can help you with that. So calling out Go Cardless here, but of course there's players in this space. There's Stripe as well, and these kind of services, they allow you to set up direct debits, so you can sort of agree a direct debit kind of mandate with your client, and then your monthly bill will go out and it's already pre-approved. It'll just be paid instantly, or it gives them the option to click, pay now, something like this. It's really brilliant. You got Cresco kind of stepping into this space with their fee-free offering, which is a real disruptor, so keep an eye on that. And in terms of like the chasing piece, there's services like Chaser. So again, you've got kind of like native chasing within some of these bookkeeping products, but if you're wanting same ideas with the reporting, if you're wanting more advanced features or customizability, then you can kind of beef it up with an app like Chaser, which can really help you with this kind of chasing chasing down of cash, I guess, getting paid by your clients. Have you tried any of these services, David? Have you got any kind of insights from your use of them?
Yeah, so we have mainly Go Cardless and Stripe set up. So Go Cardless for the direct debit, which I'll probably say 95% at least clients are on. So every month we send an invoice and then just collect it on direct debit. And then we have Stripe set up for the odd few that want to do a card payment or something like that. We set that up like, I don't know, probably 9-10 years ago now. I've never looked back. It makes a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. And I guess if you're wanting to implement these things, what can we kind of look at doing? Because of course there's a lot of choice out there and things like that, but how do we go about implementing these kind of things? So we've jotted down like a sort of go-to in terms of like a high level improvement plan, a project plan, I suppose. And I guess the key points to kind of call out is like, you know, ownership. Make sure that someone's owning the project and is kind of like responsible for it, and has the kind of remit, the budget to purchase and go ahead with what they want to do, and they have the authority to kind of push it through and make sure that it happens. If automation is kind of required from a client improvement point of view, we used to do like a segmentation exercise where we would kind of grade clients on like, you know, these ones are quite acceptable to change and like tech, so we'll work with them first and get them across, and then we move on to the different kind of tranches of client base. It's also about thinking about kind of like the milestones of the project. So I always used to say the key things you needed were a vision, you need the skills, incentives, so sort of reasons to adopt the change, the resources to kind of back it up, and then really importantly like an action plan to kind of follow. And that action plan would tie into point 4, so having like sort of measurable KPIs. So like, what does success look like 18 months from now, right? If we want to be there, what do we need to do every 3 months in order to get there? Is it certain numbers of clients or a certain percentage of this and that? And what does success look like? So if it's like we've called it here, like a 10% improvement in profit, you can track that and see if it's been a success. I guess from your experience of, you know, you were saying you were kind of learning as you went with some implementations. Is there anything specific you would call out that you kind of learned from an implementation and you were like, oh yeah, I wish I'd known that before, that you could share, David?
I think for us, it's the biggest thing of trying to work out what you're trying to achieve with it. I think originally, because there's been loads of discussions over the last few years of automation and linking things and making life easier and all that kind of thing. And it's easier, I think, to fall into the trap of it all sounds amazing, let's just do everything. And that's certainly what we did. And then some of it we had to look at it and say, well, actually, what are we trying to achieve with this? And then actually start from that point. And I think that for me was then the biggest takeaway of, okay, well, when we've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole here, we probably need to come back a little bit and potentially redo it. So I think to anybody looking at this, just look at that to begin with, and what are you actually trying to achieve?
Yeah, stick to the question my teacher always used to say at school.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That got off piece.
Yeah, cool. So where do we get these things? It's really simple, right? So there's app stores and app marketplaces on your phone, on your laptops, within your service providers. They'll have like app stores themselves of pre-approved applications that they already integrate with. The age old, just Google it. Like if you've got a really niche problem, I had a client once. They were a dentist, equestrian dentist, so like dentistry for horses, and there was an app for it, which is wild. So just Google it, and there's probably something out there that'll be able to help you. And good advice, I guess that's you know, word of mouth again, right? If you if you're in construction or you work with a lot of construction clients, they'll probably have tested out different apps and picked their favorite ones, so they'll be able to tell you which are the best ones, and then you can pass on that knowledge to your client base. We go to the next slide. So I guess in terms of a wrap, so apologies we have overrun a little bit, but I hope it it's not been invaluable that we spent a little bit more time on each slide than we maybe should have budgeted for. Just calling out AutoEntry then. So put simply, it's all about getting your document, getting that data in, those documents, those records in from your clients as easily as possible. So from the sort of where that document is created, whether it's a receipt from a till or an invoice, wherever that document is, you're able to get it into AutoEntry. So you can photograph it if it's in your hand, you can scan it in, you can send it in by email, PDF, whatever kind of format it arrives in, you're able to capture that. And AutoEntry is brilliant. It's able to extract that information, read it automatically and categorize it for you. There's rules in there, and then of course you can publish it into your accounting system of choice. So we've got some graphics on the side here to name a few. So you got your Sages, your Zeros. You can even export it into Excel and put it into any system you want, really. I guess that propels me to my final point, and I think that this is universal across any kind of apps or any kind of like solution that you're looking to kind of use. Just give it a go. And so you can try AutoEntry for free. If you just go to our website, AutoEntry, there's literally a try for free button. There's no credit card or anything like that needed, and like it says on the screen, you'll get 25 credits to kind of use and play around with it. So 25 credits, that'll cover 25 invoices or receipts for you. So if you've got a small year-end job, one of those boxes of receipts, and there's 25 receipts in there or less, why not just push the job through AutoEntry and see how it goes, and then you'll have a good understanding whether it works or doesn't for you. That would be my recommendation. Just give it a go and see how it is. Q&A. So if there's any questions at all from anyone, then fire them across. We'll hang around for a couple of minutes and answer those. But if not, look, I hope it's been a useful chat for everyone that attended. David, it's been great to get your insight and to meet you today. So thank you so much for your time as well. We'll just hang around and see if any questions come through, will we?
I can see one question there, Sean. It says, do you know any bookkeeping apps integrate with Odoo, O-D-O-O? Which I've never heard of that one, I'm afraid. Currently using Dex with Zero, but moving over. Any ideas, David, perhaps?
Odoo. I've not heard of Odoo either. Have you heard of it, David?
No, you've caught me off guard. I'm going to do a bit of Googling now afterwards. So, yeah, I can't say I've heard of that one, to be honest.
So maybe one that we can come back to you on.
Yeah.
Have you got the information of who that question came from?
Yeah,
Peter?
I do. Yeah, it's the names there, so we can have a look into it. But that's perfect, it. Nothing else, I'm afraid. Nothing's come up.
Okay, cool. Right. Well, thanks again, David, and thanks to everyone for attending. Hope it's been useful, and we'll let you go.
Nice one. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Cheers. Bye for now.